Hello, friends, and welcome to another live edition of Syracuse Sports. This is Syracuse basketball postgame presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. My name is Brent Axe. Great to have you back here. And Syracuse basketball continues its great play. It was an interesting game at the Dome tonight. It was an entertaining game. It was a high-scoring game. Syracuse had to trade threes with Florida State, with one player in particular giving Syracuse a huge lift off the bench. Donnie Freeman continues to be not only one of the best players in the ACC, but frankly, one of the best and most consistent players in the country since his return. He lifts Syracuse to another win tonight. 6 out of 7 for Syracuse, now 12-5, beating Florida State 94-86. Your final at the JMA Wireless Dome. Freeman with 25 points on the night. We mentioned that lift off the bench. Tyler Betsey, 18 points. I cannot resist it. Heavens to Betsey. I did it. I said it. That'll be the only time, I promise. But hey, he comes off the bench, gives you 18 points. We're going to hear from both Donnie Freeman and Tyler Betsey about their respective performances and how this team is playing right now. William Kyle III with 11 points, 9 rebounds, just misses out on a double-double. Naithan George, this is a guy who led the ACC in assists per game last year, but it was tonight where he had his career high, 13 assists, dishing it out for the Orange tonight. Syracuse hits 11 three-pointers. Florida State hits 10. And I think that's big that Syracuse is doing this as they continue to stack wins, to use that expression, before the schedule really picks up with some tougher teams, some quad 1 and quad 2 opportunities. Really pretty much game in and game out coming for Syracuse at the end of this month and all throughout February. These are the games. This is the stretch where Syracuse had to stack wins, and they are doing that. But I think the difference between this team making the NCAA tournament or not is going to come down to three-point shooting. It's great that they got Donnie Freeman back and some of the other things that are starting to emerge for this team and how they're learning how to win. Some great comments from our Syracuse Sports Insiders that we'll get to that kind of touch on this coming up. And being a Syracuse Sports Insider, by the way, means you get direct text message access to me. And once in a while, we get to meet in real life. Shout out to Paul and his wife, Sandy, who I got to meet at the JMA Wireless Dome tonight, coming in from Columbus, but Paul with some Central New York roots, and great to meet him and his lovely bride at the Dome. Great to see insiders game in and game out at the JMA Wireless Dome, and you can text me anytime as an insider about all things on your mind when it comes to Syracuse sports, including the amazing back and forth that happens during games, your questions, your comments, and love getting the feel of what you guys are seeing while watching the games. So become a Syracuse Sports Insider today, and only our Syracuse Sports Insiders have the secret voicemail line. So we'll check that before the show is over. A couple other things I want to hit on tonight. Syracuse's highest-rated football recruit is now on the basketball team. I want to explain just exactly what Kelvin Russell III's, we have a lot of thirds on this team, Kelvin Russell and William Kyle. How about that? Guys, I don't expect much from Russell. It's a great story, and I think it's great that he's on the team, and I think it's a smart strategy on both Fran Brown and Adrian Autry's part, but you're not going to be seeing Kelvin Russell out there on the court anytime soon, short of Syracuse being in a blowout situation. But I think it is a positive overall that he's on the team. There's a really interesting pregame thing to tell you about with Carmelo Anthony that we'll get into, and so much more, as the expression goes here. But look, what more can he say about Donnie Freeman? 25 points tonight. He's hitting threes. He's working the paint. He's getting rebounds. He's a consistent free throw shooter, one of the team's best three-point shooters and free throw shooters, frankly. 6 of 7 at the free throw line tonight, 9 of 12 from the field. He grabs 8 rebounds. He has just taken his game to that proverbial next level. He has been on a heater since he returned from that injury. And I remember talking to Donnie in the locker room after that first game when he came back, waiting for ACC to play. And they lost that game, right? They waited for ACC play to get back. That timed out well coming into that Clemson game. But he heard some of the criticism. He saw some of the criticism. It fueled him that he's always not thinking about the team. And, you know, there were some whispers about, is this his team, if you will, his people, saving it for the NBA, whatever it was, whatever the crap that was out there was. Like, he heard it, he saw it, and he has been motivated by it. And I was curious how he's doing it, right? I'm always curious about process. And when a player is, it's one thing to go out there and have a great game. It's quite another to what Donnie Freeman has been doing since he's come back. He's been over 20 points every game. He has been as consistent as they come. So I asked Donnie what the key to that has been since he's come back after a 9-game absence.
Honestly, I think my preparation is a big part of the success that I've been having. My preparation is a big part of the success I've been having. Also, our preparation is a part of the success that we've been having as well. So, just want to prepare and just treat it every day, take it serious, be very intentional with everything that you want to do.
What are the things you see on film in your preparation? Maybe it didn't see in your first year, but now that you're older and wiser, you're picking up on it.
Yeah, you nailed it. Being wiser is a big part of it, kind of picking my shots better. Also, I've gotten stronger, so that's helped me a lot more than when I thought it would. But just being wiser and me spending a lot of time out last year, I've seen the game from a different lens, and I picked up on some things that's helping me right now.
And you got to remember, this is Donnie Freeman's first real run through the ACC. He certainly played a few games, but his injury occurred before Syracuse got into the depths and the throes of ACC play. He noted it there, his preparation. He saw the game differently when he was on the bench last year, still went through the preparation of going through games and got to see the game from a different angle. Being stronger is huge in the paint, right? When you're going through the rigors of ACC play and you're working in the paint, but just being stronger overall. He is the go-to guy for this team. And when you couple that with JJ Starling, it's hard to have a quiet 15 points, 7 of 10 from the field, but JJ made some huge plays in this game. Feels like everybody made some kind of play down the stretch that was necessary. Sadiq White, 6 points tonight. He did have the technical foul. Look, if you saw the game, was that a bad call to call a technical in that situation? I'm not going to push back on anybody that says that, but don't give the ref a reason to blow the whistle. Sadiq is a very passionate player. He talks a lot out there. I love the enthusiasm, right? But as Adrian Autry put it in his post-game press conference, you kind of have to funnel that competitiveness the right way into the right situations. I didn't love that call. I didn't love a lot of calls in this game, frankly, but thankfully, the officials did not override this game. It didn't become like a Hofstra situation. Remember, Sadiq White had a technical in that game, which came back to bite Syracuse in what turned out to be a 1-point loss to Hofstra. So he's got to get that under control. Just don't give the ref any reason whatsoever to call that technical, and Florida State got 4 free throws out of that situation. But Sadiq was huge down the stretch for this team. So when you're getting bench play, Tyler Betsey, of course, was at the top of that list off the bench tonight, as we'll get into here shortly, but Sadiq giving you that contribution there. There was a guy off the bench tonight that I thought was interesting that we'll get into and how Kelvin Anthony played in this game. But Tyler Betsey, and by the way, Donnie Freeman would like to remind everybody that he called this weeks ago, months ago at this point, on Tyler Betsey doing what he did tonight. 18 points, all on three-pointers, hitting 6 from outside.
Tyler's dynamite. He came in like spark plug off the bench. He's that good. And I told guys the ACC Media Day, even before anybody seen him, he was that good, and he's starting to show it now.
Typically what we've seen from Tyler Betsey is he's been a first-half lift. He had a great game for Syracuse against Georgia Tech. He comes out 6 3-pointers tonight, and what that did is it stretched out the minutes that he was playing, key minutes. He's in the game with less than 4 minutes to go. If you're in the game with less than 5-6 minutes to go, you're a second-half starter. You're in the game at the right time. And I credit Autry for putting him in there. There was a while there where the insiders and I were going back and forth saying, why is Naithan George not in this game right now? And why is Tyler Betsey not in this game right now? Which is typically not something you say in the second half, but he earned that. And look, Florida State came into this game 17th in the ACC, 31% from three-point range. But they were hitting their threes tonight because, look, Syracuse got 25 points off turnovers. They got a huge number there against Georgia Tech. If you're going to get 14 turnovers from the other team, you got to cash it in for points. They did that. But this was obviously not Syracuse's best defensive game. It's going to happen. There are going to be shootouts, back and forths, tit for tats that you're going to get into in basketball. And Florida State had come off of an absolute clubbing by NC State. It was their worst ACC loss ever. I think it was 113-69 and maybe off a little bit there. They just got their doors blown off, right? So you knew they were going to come in with a little pride. And I got a few texts from the insiders before this game started. A lot of you guys are asking questions. Is somebody out? What's going on? Because the line dropped, for entertainment purposes only, of course, from 8.5 to 4.5. That's a big, to steal a phrase from a certain head coach, that's a big dip when it comes to the point spread. So something was up there. Syracuse did end up covering, of course, as they also did against Georgia Tech when they were actually an underdog in that game, which was kind of weird. But what was up with that? I'd like to know the story of why the line dropped the way that it did. It all evened out if you pick Syracuse. But so, yeah, nothing nefarious as far as I know that happened in that game. But you come back to it, how Syracuse overcame a bad defensive game, which is rare for them. They came in second in the East, barely second in the East. It's more like 1A. I think Clemson gives up like 65.65 points per game, and Syracuse is like 65.69. It's minuscule percentage. So essentially, they still have one of the best scoring defenses in the ACC, but Florida State was hitting their threes tonight. This is interesting. Shout out to Insider Eugene from Hawaii, who mentions this a lot on the text line. I've highlighted some of his comments here on the pod. Eugene would just love to see Syracuse go back to the zone. They're not going to do that. And I will actually agree with what Adrian Autry said in his press conference tonight when asked about the zone, because they've been showing more and more of it the past few games. It's a feel. I agree with Autry on this. You put the zone out there when it feels right, when you try to mix things up a little bit. Obviously, there's a strategic value to the three-point shot and making teams take those threes and challenging them. The thing was, Florida State was hitting threes, and I felt like Syracuse didn't need to be in a zone all the time that it was in this game. Florida State was playing some zone as well, which Syracuse is struggling against, which is interesting, and Autry knows that, and they've got to figure that out, because I think the more smart coaches that watch film and are seeing Syracuse struggle against the zone, we're probably going to see more of that going forward against Syracuse, but I like the feel of it. I like that it's in their back pocket. I don't think there should be an exclusive zone team, because all the defensive numbers have been there, right? Donna might have jinxed it, but shout out to Donna, who does an amazing job. But she wrote a great article this week about how Syracuse was defending so well against the three, which of course meant tonight Florida State came in and hit 10 threes in this game. But the important thing is that Syracuse hit 11. They had not even got the double digits in three-point play until recently. Now they've had a couple of games there. So again, I'm going to say it. I think the difference between this team making the tournament or not is going to be three-point shooting. And if they're better there, and Donnie Freeman has been a lift that has certainly risen all boats, if you will. But if you're shooting better from three, and you got a guy like Betsey that can hit threes, and you can get other contributions here and there for this team, Nate George with a couple of threes. Nate Kings just continues to not live up to what the expectation of Nate Kings was, a 44% three-point shooter, but hopefully that comes around at some point. He played 18 minutes in this game. I think you're going to see his minutes. How can I put this? It's going to be interesting to see how they're balanced, whether he's hitting threes or not, but Nate Kings is a good defender, which is always going to, I shouldn't say always, but more of the time is going to put him on the floor over a Tyler Betsey or some other people in situations, because this is a good defensive team that needs good defenders out there to get points off turnovers, to push the ball up the floor off defensive plays, whether they're in a man or a zone. So Kings is going to get a little leeway there because he's a good defender, but obviously you want to see him come around from the three-point angle. But man, when you got Tyler Betsey coming off the bench and dropping 18 for this team, Tyler's been through Big 12 basketball. He comes from Cincinnati, okay? These are guys, this is where this is going to pay off, right? So let me nitpick a little on a couple of things in the second half here. So there was a moment when, look, Naithan George had a terrific game by the box score. He certainly had some moments. He had a bad turnovers a couple of times, and Nate George just has these moments where you just kind of take a deep breath and hope it all works out when he kind of ducks his head and drives into the paint. But you're giving me 8 points, a career-high 13 assists, and only 4 turnovers. There was a stretch in this game, in the witching hour, as we like to call it, where Kelvin Anthony was playing a lot more than he should have. Kelvin Anthony struggled in this game. You could see, like, this was an ACC game. He was not giving this team enough to be in the lineup over Naithan George as long as he was in the second half of this game. Now, overall, Kelvin had 5 points, shot 2 of 7, 0 of 3 from three-point range. I think he's forcing some threes at this point. He played 18 minutes. This is just not a game he should have played 18 minutes. I think there is a role for him on this team. I think he's one of the best and most aggressive and pure scorers on this team. But he, and I've seen somebody in his family do this a lot too, it's just their game, he dribbles too much. He has got, Kian's at his best when he makes quick decisions. He sees a lane, he attacks. But when he's dribble, he's not at the point where he should be given that much freedom to do that in his game. There's a role he's got to stay. I don't want to tell him to stay in a box. I don't want to say that. But when you're looking and the shot clock's dwindling down, it's 8, 7, 6, and he just keeps waiting for something to open up. That's not going to be as easy as you think in ACC play. So what's interesting about that is before the game, and I'm going to show you some photos for those of you that are watching here on YouTube and live on Facebook, because Syracuse Sports Live, always live on our Syracuse Orange Basketball Facebook page and our Syracuse Orange Sports YouTube page. So make sure you mark those. And when we go live on our post-game shows, you don't miss a thing there. Look who is there. Yes, Carmelo Anthony is there every game. But this is not something we've seen typically. So Melo takes off his coat, and this is about 2 hours plus. I walked in the Dome at 6:45 and saw this happening. Carmelo working with Kian before the game. I mean, if you were lucky enough to be in the Dome that early, I mean, what a cool sight. Just, this is everything of when Kian Anthony announced he was coming to play at Syracuse. Like, to see Melo continue to have a role with this team, his presence has never been far from Syracuse basketball since winning that championship in 2003. I mean, his name's on the building, of course, the Carmelo Anthony Basketball Center. But to see him actively on the court with his son, teaching him, they were working on some specific things before the game. I mean, come on, how cool is that? And shout out to the great Dennis Nett, our ace photographer, who took these photos. Good stuff there. Unfortunately, it did not result in a good game. So there was a moment where George, to go back to Naithan George, and Autry, now I didn't see this because I was at the game. Shout out to the great broadcast crew, my good friend Anish Shroff and Terrence Oglesby, who he's awesome. He is a rising star in terms of color commentators, ACC network, ESPN, whatever network he's working on. I got a chance to hang out with those guys a little bit before the game. Had a great conversation. Shout out to those guys, and hopefully we'll be hearing from them on the pod sometime soon. Of course, Anish is a big lacrosse guy, so I know we'll be talking to Anish once lacrosse gets underway. But I want to have Terrence on the pod sometime soon. He is fantastic, and getting to talk to those guys before the game, and we were talking about Melo and Kian and what was going on there. That was cool. But when I'm kind of lost my train of thought there for a second, but George, to go back to him, there was a moment where Autry didn't like a turnover, and there was the broadcast is what made me think of that. I didn't see this on the broadcast, but I think there was a pretty, coaches get emotional. They yell at players. It happens 40 times a game, but was Red, and bad job by me not asking about this after the game, but was Red that upset with his point guard that he didn't play those extended minutes in the second half because of that? Now, George can have some bad turnovers, right? But the dude had 13 assists tonight, and Kian wasn't out there killing it, right? You got to have your point guard on the floor in these situations. It's actually interesting how Syracuse's Donnie Freeman is the tide that lifts all boats, but you need Naithan George out there. Okay, this is a guy who, for the faults in his game, tonight was not one of those bad games. He had his moments, but guy gave you 13 assists. And did that even though, what did he end up minutes-wise tonight? 29. He should have been in that game for 36 minutes. Kian was not justifying being in there for, it's not that Kian didn't make some plays in this game, but you needed your point guard in there. So that Betsey got in the last 4 minutes, but wasn't in the game in the second half for chunks of time when he really should have been, considering it's the hot hand. Florida State was not doing a good job guarding him. He was getting open. Guys hitting from outside. Give him some run. So having the right lineup in the right spot and just playing your best players that are playing best as opposed to kind of sticking to the hockey line philosophy and just kind of a normal substitution pattern. I think that's still something that is a weakness of Autry's. Right now, he made up for it. George got in the last 4 minutes. Betsey made up for it by putting Betsey in the last 4 minutes. So he not quite a Dumb and Dumber, you went and totally redeemed yourself kind of thing, but at least he made the right decision. He had a very smart timeout. There's about 11 minutes to go, almost entering Syracuse basketball's witching hour, as we were kind of joking about on the last pod. So don't get me wrong, I think Red, for the most part, coached a pretty interesting game. There were some lineups in the first half that I thought were interesting, but that was the one bugaboo I take away from this game is why George sat so much in the second half. But, it all came full circle in this one. Didn't come back to bite you. They stack a win, as the expression goes. Now, before we hear from our Syracuse Sports Insiders, interesting tidbit in that Kelvin Russell III, Syracuse's highest-rated football recruit in 25 years, the wide receiver, Miami Northwestern, he's now on the basketball team. So that's going to create a lot of curiosity. Syracuse social media accounts are showing him at practice, hit a 3 at practice the other day. The team's going crazy. There's an interview with him. My colleague, Chris Carlson, from syracuse.com is a story coming on Kelvin you guys will want to check out here, so keep an eye on that on syracuse.com. It's very interesting. I mean, this team has a lot of interesting characters on it at the very least, right? Kyan Anthony being the star attraction in that sense, some good players, what Donnie's doing, but to have Kelvin Russell follow in the footsteps of the football-basketball crossovers over the years. I mean, Donovan McNabb, one of the more recent famous examples of this. You go back into history, of course, Wilma Sadat Singh and Vic Hansen in both the college football and basketball Hall of Fames. It's not a long list of people that are on that list. And even guys like Melvin Tootin and Mike Williams that were football, basketball crossovers. Obviously Jim Brown, Floyd Little, Ernie Davis, right? So through the generations, it always seems like it's always interesting when you have somebody that plays basketball that is a star football player. And I think the difference here, and I think a savvy move on Fran Brown's part to get a little crossover conversation going here, is most other schools that were recruiting Kelvin Russell were like, you want to play basketball? Sure. Whereas Fran Brown was like, you need to play basketball. You should play basketball. That is one of the things that helped land Kelvin Russell, right? Now, is he going to be on this team for the next 4 years? Given the circumstance of college sports and everything that's going on with the transfer portal and all this stuff, no, I don't think so. But to appease, I don't want to say appease him, that's not the right way to do it, but to show him, yes, we will do that for you. You're welcome to do that. Now, I would not have expectations that Kelvin Russell is going to help the basketball team. He did not play high school basketball this year, obviously, because he arrived at Syracuse for the spring semester. The last competitive basketball he played was his junior year of high school. So you're not going to parachute a guy like that in the middle of the season and with ACC play ramping up and expect him to contribute. Now, Russell is a legit 6'5". He's athletic. I watched him in warmups. He's a lefty, by the way. Nice stroke, but you can tell the basketball's a little rusty. They showed a nice three-pointer that he hit in practice yesterday, but that's one highlight. I watched Russell, and warm-ups is not 100% indicator of what kind of player you are, but he's rusty. He's getting there, right? But he is certainly somebody that can push this team at practice and just the experience, right? He comes to college, hits the ground running, he's on the basketball team. He's a part of something. Now, football workouts are going to kick in, and I wonder how that balance is going to go. And Adrian Autry said it, football first. But the fact that they've welcomed him on this team, and when you're Syracuse, you need every chip in your pocket that you can reach into and throw on the table and say, this is the difference in why you should come to Syracuse. Because when you can't be as competitive in the NIL market and all the uphill battles that Syracuse has to fight to land recruits of that nature, if being welcome on the basketball team was what helped get this over the finish line, that not only helps land a player like Russell, it shows other players out there that, hey, you come to Syracuse, you can do this, right? But I would say to temper your expectation of how he's going to help this team this year. I don't think you're going to see a lot of him on the court, short of some blowouts or some situations where Red can empty the bench, which, again, there's not a lot of opportunity for that these days, because remember how important margin of victory is for your NCAA tournament resume. They look at this stuff, right? So, cool story. And it helped land him as a football recruit. But for those that have been asking, like, oh, is he going to play? Like, he's not going to help this team, at least right away. But this is, you want to look at a pie chart, it's like 98% positive in this story, and good news all around. And help seal the deal with one of the most highly touted football recruits Syracuse has ever had. So all cool there. And as I like to say, I don't root for your team, but I root for interesting. And this is really interesting to have a guy like this on what is already an interesting team. So something to follow there. And it's good to see Russell on campus. And look, that's a wide receiver room that lacks experience. They just picked up a highly touted recruit that they wanted from Penn State the other day. I know we're getting a little more into football than I thought we would here, but Kelvin Russell is going to be expected to contribute right away on football. So just keep that in mind here. Like there's a balance that has to be there between football and basketball. But I love it. I love that in 2026 we still see multi-sport athletes. It was interesting to see Joe Filardi be the quarterback of the football team. I don't think that was quite in the plans, and he's going to be a key contributor. Maybe even this year. I think more down the line for Gary Gate on the lacrosse team, but we'll see him on the field this year. He's a very good lacrosse player. Talking about Filardi now. So I like this. We're seeing multi-sport athletes again. That's still in style. And I like that. All right. You know what else I like? You know what else I love, I should say? Our Syracuse Sports Insiders and their awesome feedback. And being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you direct text message access to me anytime. Your questions, your comments, your insight. We're watching games together. We're answering questions. We're having fun. Gives you access to the secret voicemail line for the post-game shows and the Syracuse Sports Podcast. So let's see what was on your mind tonight. Seth B. says, this team is BD and AD. Before Donnie and after Donnie. He has become the player we all hoped that he would be. Frankie S. says, Bachman-Turner overdrive kind of win. Taking care of business every day. I wasn't sure what to expect from Florida State, but they sure pushed Syracuse for 40 minutes. Michael S. says, do you move Betsey into the starting lineup and bring Kings off the bench, or do you leave him there to provide that second-level scoring? Michael, I would definitely go with option B there. Kings is a good defender. He's a better defender than Betsey. Betsey's going to push. Okay, if he's going to come in there and he's going to consistently give you anywhere between 3 and 6 3-pointers, he needs to be on the floor. If Kings is not going to give you that, and I still think there's some plays they can run for Kings. I think there's some things they can and should do to spring him free from the 3-point line. I don't think we're quite there yet, but Betsey is certainly showing he's going to push in that department. Frank F. says, this is one of the most bizarre teams I've ever seen. They play right to the level of every opponent. I wouldn't be surprised if they won every game the rest of the year or if they lost them all either. It is an interesting team, to say the least. Frankie S. Oh, we already played that one, but good comment nonetheless, my man. Pete R. says, I'll take the win. It's a must win. I just don't understand how Red is managing the lineup down the stretch. Stick with the hot hand. Yeah, we talked about that. The Betsey thing and keeping George off the floor as long as he did in a key second half stretch was I just think he made the wrong call in that one. Dahmer, my guy, North Carolina, they are so good when they go fast. They get in trouble when they rush. There's a difference, and I feel like this team is starting to know that difference. That's a great comment. There is a difference between going fast and playing in rhythm versus rushing and clunky. And there were times where they got back in that habit in the first half, not moving the ball, ISO ball. I mentioned Kyan, he's dribbling a little too much. Like there were moments where you're not playing fast, you're rushing, or you're disorganized. There is a big difference between the two. Brady D says, fun game to be at tonight. Got to focus on the positives. They're stacking wins and covering the spread. for entertainment purposes only. Why did that line move right at the end there? That was weird. Have to consult our friend Joey Bag of Donuts on that one. Johnny P says, I think it's clear Donnie Freeman is the difference here. He truly makes the offense flow, and they look like such a coherent unit on offense. Truly nice to see ball movement, lobs, and dunks. This has been Red's best stretch as a coach so far. Switching up the D, substitutions somewhat make more sense. Feels good again. From Spencer, who says, points off turnovers, the difference in this game. 14 is still more than you want. They made up for it with how many they scored off turnovers. Yeah, so in that department, both teams had 14 turnovers. Syracuse got 25 points off of those turnovers. Florida State, 14 points off 14 turnovers. If you're going to turn the ball over that much, at least make it manageable, and they certainly did that. Spencer adds this, Donnie Freeman's the best player they've had in several years. Interesting. Cody says, I like getting a season-high points as a team. It isn't easy to score 90. It shows us this team is growing and is capable of putting up points. Cody adds this. It felt like Syracuse was about to pull away a couple times at the end, but just little things prevented that. The technical, the foul on a three, could lose the momentum as soon as they got the chance to build it back up. Yeah, there's still every team makes some head scratchers, some dumb mistakes in games. Trying to remember what Autry said about this. So they had 14 turnovers. I think he said 5 or 6 of those were just unnecessary, right? So game flow, if you're getting like 7, 8 turnovers, that's just flow of the game. But there's just too many dumb plays like that. Not as many tonight, but that have come from your point guard or just come from the Sadiq White technical and just things like you just can't do consistently, all right? Paul L. says an NBA game broke out at the Dome tonight. I guess we should have expected that in the NIL portal era. We're grateful that Donnie is back, but I said I wouldn't do it a second time. I'd never said anything about Paul. Heavens to Betsey, right? There you go. It's not me. That's you guys saying it a second time. I told you I wasn't going to do it a second time. From Jake, who says, Brent, I think we have serious PTSD after last season. This team seems to be learning how to win, not finding ways to lose like last year. Now let's hope Freeman stays healthy. Even go to the Clemson game. Hofstra was a bite in the tuchus they did not need. If they made their free throws, they win that game. Sadiq had a bad technical in that game. That's a learn how to lose kind of game. That's still a bad loss. That's kind of really haunting this team. You make your free throws and beat Houston. You make your free throws and beat Hofstra. That cancels out Donnie Freeman not being in because obviously this team is worlds different. Who had the comment earlier, BD, AD, before Donnie, after Donnie? If you make your free throws in those two games, and they've been better from the free throw line. Tonight, what were they overall at the free throw line? 9 of 15, 60%. But they've been much better there over the stretch of the last 3-4 games after, obviously, the disaster it was earlier in the season, right? So learning how to win, making your free throws, being in these situations, being smarter, carry over the finish line. Whereas didn't it Hofstra, Clemson, as much as they lost that game, Clemson's a ranked team. They're a good ACC team. That's a quality loss, if you will. We'll see if that slides into quad one or territory, which would give you it's still a quality loss, if you will. But where that ends up in the rankings and the metrics and everything, I believe Syracuse slipped into the top 60 of KenPom tonight. We'll check all the numbers when they update for tomorrow. Well, technically it is tomorrow as we speak at 1:30 in the morning, Eastern Standard Time here live on the pod. But we played that clip from Donnie earlier, right? It's being in those games, in those situations, in those battles, and learning from them and preparing for them, right? For Donnie to have this level of maturity and to have this level of confidence in his game, when, again, this is really his first big stretch of ACC games. And we got a long way to go here, right? It's middle of January, but the way that schedule is going to stack up, no one is expecting Donnie Freeman to play like this every night, but he's got to be their go-to guy. He's got to be a level 5 scorer, to steal a term, and more often than not kind of hit that average. It's a big average right now, but he's a big-time player. Like, he is playing his way if he stays on this path. When Donnie Freeman came here, remember, he is the most highly rated, we're talking about highly rated recruits earlier with Kelvin Russell. Donnie Freeman was the highest rated recruit since Carmelo. Had some obvious setbacks with the injuries, right? But he's showing up in first round NBA mock draft conversations, dropped out of them considering the injury situation. But if he stays healthy and stays on the path he's on, he's playing his way into the first round, right? So the traditional way of losing players. We will be seeing the last of Donnie Freeman in a Syracuse uniform, not because he's going to transfer somewhere, but because he's going to go pro. So you got to get the most out of that you can going forward here. I believe we do have a caller from the secret voicemail line. Let's see what we got.
Hey, Brent, not that Jim V. Good all-around team effort, both good and bad. Everyone played well and contributed both positively and I think negatively. These lulls that we keep seeing are, to me, they're self-inflicted. This team, as their lead gets bigger, their basketball IQ goes down. But in the immortal words of Lou Brown, you win 3 in a row, and that's called a winning streak. Let's hope they can keep it going. Until next time.
Thank you, Jimmy. I'm always here for a major league quote. How would you like to manage the Indians this year? Oh, I don't know, Charlie. I got a guy on the other line about some white walls. I'll get back to you. Don't get me going on the major league quotes. I'll be here all night. But yes, that's called a winning streak. 6 out of 7 ain't bad, though. Syracuse stacking wins and doing it up and down the roster. But Donnie Freeman is still, it all centers back to him. You're getting bench contributions from Tyler Betsey. You're getting 13 assists from Naithan George. You're getting 15 from JJ Starling. All great. All needed, right? Some of the other plays, Sadiq White that we mentioned, all the contributions in a team that's stacking wins against teams that, frankly, they should be beating. That's going to bank the confidence they're going to need when they step up in ACC competition around the corner here, right? All important. But it all comes back to Donnie Freeman. This team will go as Donnie goes, as we have seen in yet another victory for the Orange, 6 of their last 7. Okay, so we will be back. Programming note, our next Syracuse basketball postgame show, Saturday, 2 o'clock is the tip time for Syracuse Boston College. Right after that game, and I'm going to tell you something, guys, we're going to be on very quickly after that game. Why? Because the Bills are on. Bills Broncos, Saturday afternoon at 4:30. Uncle Brent's going to want to watch his Bills. So we're going to be on pretty quick after that game. So pretty much right after Syracuse Boston College, we're going to hop on. We're going to do a post-game show because we're going to do it for the people. We're going to do the post-game show. But, yeah, we're not messing around Saturday because I got to watch that Bills game, right? So go Bills. But that's our next post-game show. Saturday is the Orange take on Boston College. So please subscribe. Please follow Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your pods. So if you can't watch us live, you can listen and watch on demand when you want. Thanks to our friends at Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. This has been another edition of Syracuse Sports Live, Syracuse basketball postgame. Syracuse knocks off Florida State tonight, 94-86 at the JMA Wireless Dome. My name is Brent Axe. Thanks to our Syracuse Sports Insiders, as always, for their great insight, and we will talk to you next time, guys.